So first of all, let me just do a quick introduction of myself. My name's Maya Mert. I'm with a company called Crazy Coupon Lady. If you haven't heard of us, if you've seen a step and repeat, you can see our logo over there. KCL, since it's Women's History Month, I have to mention, we're women founded, women owned. 80% of our workforce are women. 80% of our audience are women, and more importantly, like while we see an uptick in the men, I think it's really important from everything that we've learned that women in leadership positions is really important. We're going to talk to Karuna about that today. But before we do that, we're going to share a little video for you, a little bit about Nature's Fynd, so you have an idea and learn a little bit about the brand, and we'll go into more depth as we learn from Karuna. That's great. So if you guys haven't seen, like they're trying to do way more than a lot of the brands you may have heard from here today. And we're going to learn a little bit more about it. But before we do that, we want to learn about you, Karuna. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, so it's actually been a very interesting journey. So I actually started my career at Procter & Gamble in traditional CPG marketing. I was actually in the food and beverage division, which actually no longer exists. So working on very big iconic brands that you may have heard of, like Jif Peanut Butter and Folgers Coffee and Duncan Hines and Pringles. So kind of learned the basics of building a brand from P&G. And then actually I spent the second third of my career on the agency side. So I actually went from client side to agency, which is very unusual. But I joined Leo Burnett and became a strategist on the agency side, and that helped me really understand kind of the creative side of marketing. So if you think about a place like P&G or any of the big CPGs, you learn a lot of business, sort of the left brain of marketing. And then I had a chance to actually spend about 9 years on the agency side, working on some really fun campaigns and really understanding how to bring creativity to marketing. So with that combination, I was kind of ready to go try something new and different, and this opportunity came along. So this was about 4 years ago, and it was a company I'd never heard of. It was actually called Sustainable Bioproducts at the time. And when I got the call, because it was someone I knew, I didn't hang up the phone, because when they described it, I was like, this sounds crazy. And they were like, yeah, they found this microbe in Yellowstone, and now they're trying to make meatless products out of it. I was like, no, that's not real. But the more I learned about it, it was intriguing, so I learned a little bit more, and the more I learned, the more interested I got, because it was what they were trying to do was really fix the broken food system. And having worked on food and beverage for over 25 years, I knew sort of all the things that needed to be fixed in a sense, and then what they were trying to do was really build a brand from scratch. So it was one of those intriguing opportunities to do something, to take all of the knowledge from all these years of doing it when you have all the resources and all the budgets, and try to think about how do you do something when you don't have any of those things. So building a brand. So the deal I made with our CEO, it was kind of like the deal I made with my husband when we bought our old house. I was like, we only do this if I can fix the kitchen. So this was, we only do this if I can build the new brand. So that's kind of where it started, and that was 4 years ago. And so we obviously you saw the branding film we just did. And I'm happy to say now we are in over 1,000 doors, with 3 different product categories, including Whole Foods, nationally, as well as Sprouts. So that's been the journey.
Well, let's talk a little bit about leadership. So, obviously you've seen a lot of success in your career with everything you just mentioned here. How do you think that you got to the position you're in? And I have to ask you, particularly because it's Women's History Month, as another woman of color and a minority, it is very much more difficult for us to elevate. How were you able to find success?
Yeah, I get asked this question a lot. And, I think you're right. It's not easy. I was fortunate in some ways. And, I think it's a combination of luck and opportunity, coming together. But I think I was very fortunate to start in a place like P&G, because I do think that what really matters there, I mean, obviously every company has things they need to make better, but I was very fortunate to be able to really learn leadership skills and be recognized for my talents, regardless of the color of my skin, and being a woman. So I think that helped a lot. And then obviously, learning how to really take advantage of opportunities. So I think the career advice I always give is look for those off the beaten path opportunities, because that's where you actually have an opportunity to make a mark for yourself. So just as an example, even though I went to P&G, I actually worked in what was known as the stepchild within P&G, because it was the food and beverage brands. P&G was known for the big detergents and all of the stuff that you guys all know, Charmin, etc. But, meanwhile, I was in this, what I would call, a very small division, but also extremely entrepreneurial. So I think that was, we had to kind of fight for resources and figure out how to be scrappy. Then the second thing I took a chance on is when I decided to leave Cincinnati, the company asked me to stay on, and I moved to Chicago. And again, it was a job without a description, but it was, can you help build shopper marketing and figure out how we work with retailers? And there was nobody who had done the job. So I was like, I'll do it. So again, building something out of nothing was another opportunity to really demonstrate a skill set. And then similarly, when I went on to the agency side, I had never been in an agency, never done strategic planning, but it seemed interesting. And I thought, well, I'm sure I can figure this out. So took a chance on that. So I think it's a matter of raising your hand for the untapped opportunities, because I've always found that's where you can really make your mark. Because a lot of people aren't willing to take the risk. And for me, it's less about risk and more about looking at the opportunity.
I think that's great. And, I think from the women's panels that I've been listening to, there's a common theme. And it's this theme of taking risks and being fearless. And it's clearly when you're like, I took a chance, I did this, I took a chance, not a lot of people would think I'm going to go in another trajectory to take that chance. But it clearly has worked. And I think that's a good message for all of us, whether you're a man or a woman, is to be fearless and just do whatever you think makes sense for you and try it. And if it doesn't work, try something else.
Exactly.
So let's talk about Nature's Fynd. It's funny because you talked about only if I can build the brand. I actually think you're doing more than that, because it's not just what other marketers are doing. You're having to enter a new category.
Yep.
Like, actually, not even enter a new category. You have created a new category. Yep. So can you talk a little bit about how you thought about that and how it's different from any of the other brands that you've helped support?
Yeah. So keep in mind, this is, if you wind back 4 years, when I joined, it was at the height of when Beyond, you guys have heard of Beyond and Impossible, and the whole plant-based thing was just, rocket ship. And I still remember, I joined, and like 9 days after I joined, I had to present my marketing vision to the board, which they didn't tell me when I took the job. And in between was July 4th holiday. So it was I was like, oh, this should be interesting. But the majority of the conversation was around, why would you not just say you're plant-based? Just ride the plant-based wave. And one of the things that was important to me was, having done lots of marketing in the past, it's like if you can be the one to create a new category, that immediately puts you on a different trajectory than, riding the coattails. So I fought really hard for us to say we're not going to say we're plant-based. I mean, people still call us plant-based today, but we're going to do everything we can to help communicate to people that there's actually a third category that they aren't thinking about. There's animals, there's plants, and there's fungi. It's the third kingdom that people don't often think about, but we're all familiar with it because it's mushrooms, right? And so this is, we call our fungi a distant cousin, very distant cousin of the mushroom. But it's an amazing kingdom that has all this opportunity. So I think one of the things was really deciding that we were going to be very fungi forward, as we like to say. And, I was telling the story earlier in the panel this morning about how when we first decided to, put concepts in front of consumers, because that was the very first thing I did, which was consumer research, which is all the training of, years at P&G. And the moderator came into me and she said, you've got the word fungi in the concept. You need to remove that. And I was like, no, actually, that's the concept. And she said, no, you don't understand. I've been moderating for 20 years, and you put that in front of people and talk about food, and everyone's going to leave, and this is going to be a disaster, and you're going to waste your money. And I was like, well, you know what? I'd rather waste the focus group money than waste like a whole marketing plan I'm about to build. So I'd rather know now if it's a problem and what I need to do to overcome that barrier. So, but interestingly, no one walked out of the room. No one freaked out. And we went through all different, demographics, and there was a lot of curiosity and there was a lot of interest, which kind of gave us the opportunity to build a new category. But it's funny now, wind forward 3 years, and the board is like, oh my God, so the right thing to do. I was like, glad you guys remember what you said to me back then. So yeah, it's again, taking a risk, right? But based on knowledge. Yeah.
Now I have to ask you as a consumer, tell me about taste, right? So that you're going to get people who are in the plant-based category who are like, we know what that tastes like. We've all tried it, even if you're not in the, plant-based fully.
Yep.
Tell me a little bit about the taste.
So, yeah, absolutely. So taste is the number one thing. Again, if you've done any food marketing, it doesn't matter how healthy you are. It doesn't matter how sustainable you are. Everyone says, of course I would try it. And of course I care about the environment. Of course I care about my health. But taste trumps every time. So one of the things when I came in was there was like, oh, we're going to talk about all of our sustainability stuff. So I was like, okay, people are going to just glaze over. What we need to do is lead with taste. So we actually lead very much with our taste. And one of the unique things about us versus plant proteins, so forgive me for like 30 seconds of science here. The way plant proteins are made is you actually extract protein from like a pea or a soybean in like a powder form, and then you have to process. Process is not a bad word, but you have to do some processing. You have to add, things to get the texture back. Okay, that's how plant-based proteins are made. In our case, the difference is the fungi actually grows. It grows. If you go onto our website, you'll see it grows as a thin sheet. Like think of it almost like a chicken skin or a tofu skin. It grows in trays, and it's a filamentous fungi, so it naturally has that texture. So when we are making meat-like products, we literally take the mat, we chop it up, we add spices, and and then we can make our meatless breakfast patty. We also make dairy, which is very unusual. So we take the same protein and we literally throw it in a Vitamix with water, make a milk-like substance, and then we make our dairy products. So we have a dairy-free cream cheese, and we just launched a dairy-free yogurt at Whole Foods. All three of our categories are available at Whole Foods. If you want to try our yogurt, we're sampling over at the Registrant Lounge. Sorry, just a little plug. But what's amazing is we have an extremely creamy texture. So it's almost like you sit there and you go, wait, how can this one protein do both? Well, we can because we start with the texture. Texture is much easier to break down than to build up. And then we actually have a third form, which is a flour-like product, which we haven't launched anything yet with it, but we can make breads and flours and pastas and all kinds of stuff. So it's kind of a miracle ingredient.
Is there a, because those are three separate categories in the grocery aisle, right? So is there one that's performing better than the other right now?
So we just launched yogurt,
okay.
And I would venture to say yogurt's going to be probably our strongest. It's off to a really, really strong start.
Okay, great.
Because it's really, so for each of our categories, what we've tried to do is really understand consumer needs. So this is an example of where having the big, brand and agency experience came into play, because the first thing I did was hire a head of insights, which no one in startup land does, but I highly recommend it. So I hired a really great head of consumer insights, and we invested a lot of money in a really deep consumer segmentation study. So we really understood all of the different categories we could be in, and we understood what the need gaps were in all of those different categories. So literally, so you think about our meatless breakfast patties, what we are able to deliver is the same amount of protein as pork sausage, but with 75% less fat. So people love pork sausage for the protein. Nobody loves the fat. So we were able to remove that because our protein is very low in fat. If you look at our cream cheese, one of the things we learned is people want to switch, out of dairy, but what they don't like is the texture of plant-based cream cheeses. They're often like gritty and they don't spread well. So we really focused in on delivering spreadability and great texture. In yogurt, it's really hard to find a plant-based yogurt that has real protein, and we actually deliver 8 grams of protein. So we've tried to look category by category and figure out what's our angle. Everything starts with taste, but then what's the next thing? And often it's health, because consumers do want to eat better. It's just they don't want to sacrifice taste to do that.
So it sounds like you have an easy job.
I have an easy job.
So, speaking of, I'm glad that you brought
up job.
What you brought up, customer segmentation,
yep.
and hiring somebody of head and insights. That's something that I love, and I love that all of our decisions are based on data. But let's talk a little bit about this niche audience. So I am actually a Whole Foods shopper, and my husband and I tried to eat all organic, and we started on this venture about 3 years ago. I was fortunate for 6 years to support Sprouts. And I met all of these wonderful emerging brands. So it opened the doors to me of all these different products. And so I'm really a big trialist and love to try new products. But that's a very niche audience. So Sprouts knows it, and Whole Foods knows it, and they're okay with. We understand that we have a specific niche audience. But what you're trying to do when we talk about bettering the world and all the things that we're trying to do, like, you have to have broad mass appeal.
Yep.
So as a marketer, that's a challenge, because you want to get into the market. You probably know you have to go in for the niche audience, but at the same time,
you're thinking bigger.
Think bigger. So can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think as we look at kind of what happened with plant-based, one of the lessons, obviously we benefited a great deal from having them launch before us, but one of the lessons we learned is also and this is true for all niche brands, right? You have to kind of, you have to follow the consumer a little bit, right? Like, I think they got so far ahead of where the consumer was in terms of like not knowing what the general market was going to expect of them, and knowing that people aren't willing to make trade-offs, right? When a Whole Foods shopper may be interested in doing that because they prioritize different things. So you kind of have to do this stepwise. And so we've been very deliberate in saying, we're going to actually first start with where our early adopters are going to be. And we did, again, research that shows us exactly where they shop. So we knew Whole Foods was our first target. And that's literally the first retailer we went after in 2020. Tiny little thing called the pandemic happened, so it delayed us. So we didn't get in until 2021. But we've been very clear on that's where our consumer is, similarly with Sprouts. And I think as over time, as we build up kind of consumer awareness, and I mean, doing events like this and sampling and all those things, it's going to build some momentum. And then what I would love, I mean, and we already have this, retailers are coming to us saying, when can you come in? And I keep saying, not yet. We're not ready for you yet. We're not there. Because we need the consumer to come along with us and at the right point, bring in additional retailers. It's not I'm making it sound way easier than it is. The conversations with the board on this are not easy because everybody wants to say we're in 10,000 doors. And I'm like, nope, we're actually really good at 1,000 doors right now. And we need to kind of work our way there.
You know, that's really smart. I remember talking with a lot of emerging brands, and I would tell them, they were so excited. We got into Costco.
Yep.
You know, and I'd say, do you understand the volume?
Are you ready?
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Because it will fail if you don't. So it's great that you're being patient because you get the pressure from the board.
Right.
To want to rush
and you want
say,
retailers who understand how emerging brands work. You know, everyone talks about all the overnight successes. If anyone knows of an actual overnight success, please share that with me, because every overnight success case study I've looked at took 10 years. I mean, it's just they build, they work at it, they fail, there is no, but everyone thinks, Oatly, oh my God, it was an overnight success. No, not really. There are very few brands that can do that, and so you do have to be patient. And you have to figure out a lot of what we're figuring out right now is what's working with our consumer, what doesn't work, which events should we be at, you know, where should we be sampling, how should we be sampling, like we're figuring out a lot of that so that by the time we get to a retailer like Costco or Kroger, and all of those are places we want to be, but they're not going to give us 5 chances. Whole Foods right now is working with us to figure out kind of how to build a new category. So that's the difference.
That's great. And so we spend a lot of time right now talking about challenges. Let's talk about successes. So what are some of the successes that you've seen in these 4 years as you've entered into the market?
Yeah, number one is just, honestly, like when Whole Foods said, come on in, it was huge for us as a brand that no one had ever heard of. And then this is actually a funny story because it's both a positive and a negative. So the great news was they were like, we want your breakfast patties. And we were like, great. And they said, you're ready to go national. And we're like, no, we're not. And they're like, no, we want you to go national. And we were like, no, we're not. So we had this very challenging moment of going back to them and saying, you don't want us to go national because we're going to disappoint consumers. We're not ready. We were planning on a regional launch. That's what we'd like to do. So luckily, they worked with us, and we did the regional. We learned a lot of lessons. We built up our capacity, and then we were able to launch nationally, a year later, which was actually just right for us. So, but that was a huge moment to get into the dream retailer that we were aiming for. Another one is our culinary advisor. So I think I talked a little bit about taste being the most important thing, and we also know it's our number one barrier. So, again, I like to dream big. So it's like, went for Whole Foods. Why not go for who's going to be the gold standard for culinary, right? So we chose a Michelin-starred chef named Eric Ripert from La Bernardin in New York City. And I asked him if he'd become our culinary advisor, and he agreed. And not only did he do that, he also agreed to put our products incorporate them in his menu, branded, which he has never done. So he was so excited by what we were doing, he came on as an advisor. And he helps us make sure that we deliver the very best products. So with him, we also just this summer launched a line of salad dressings made from Fynd, where we were able to cut down on the amount of fat and calories and make really delicious dressings that are Eric Ripert standard. We did that D2C and sold out in 6 hours. And we charged a premium price. We were able to show the board that this is actually something that can go up and down. Right now our products in retail are priced at a very competitive price, but we can also create something can be good enough for fine dining. So that's really helped us with our taste credentials. We also just doing a partnership with Chef Andrew Zimmern, who has been doing some really fun content for us with our products. He's in love with our products as well. So those things are really exciting and fun to work on. And then we also have a partnership with Yellowstone, which is where the original discovery was made. So we do a lot of work with them. And then with NASA. So last year, we actually launched our protein into space on SpaceX 25 into the International Space Station, and demonstrated that we can actually grow our protein in space. So if you think about, deep space travel and going to Mars, you cannot take a cow or a chicken with you. It's just too difficult. So you're going to have to figure out how to grow protein. And protein is obviously a really important component for astronauts as you think about the longer they are in space. So we're doing some really fun things. And then the last one I would say is we have a grant from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates and his investment group are one of our investors, but we are working on creating a decentralized fermentation system that we can actually deploy in areas of famine or war, or working with small farmers in places like Asia and sub-Saharan Africa to help them be able to grow protein using local input. So lots of variety in my day.
That's amazing. First of all, I'm fangirling because I totally love Andrew Zimmern and Eric Ripert, so I'm a foodie. So I love that. But there was one more. I actually started reading, and I don't know much about it, but I got this stat. It said Always Like a Girl campaign that won 4 awards at Cannes. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Yeah. So that was during the second chapter of my career, which was on the agency side. So I was fortunate enough. And again, this is one of those where you get I had a day job, but I got the call from our global CEO saying, hey, our Always business needs some help. I was like, well, I don't work on Always, so I'm not sure why you're calling me. And he's like, well, we need a SWAT team to go in and help figure out the next campaign. So literally, I was put on a team with 2 other people I had never worked with before, all women. And our job was to figure out the next campaign for Always. And on top of our day jobs, in 6 weeks, we helped create the Like a Girl campaign that you may be familiar with for Always. It was probably one of the highlights of my career. It's certainly on the advertising side, and it did go on to win. We were at Cannes. We won 14 Cannes Lions, including the first Titanium Award for gender equity. The work, we did it basically like it was a job we had to do on nights and weekends to help save that business. Turned out to be something that really had a huge impact on, the business, culture, on girl. I still to this day have people who ask me about the campaign, and it's probably one of the most rewarding things I've done.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So let's talk about what's next. So, and specifically for 2024. So when you think about, it's already March.
Yep.
You're starting all your work here. What is your current short game?
Yep.
We need to do this by the end of this year, and then maybe talk a little bit about the long game too. So what's your ultimate goal?
Yeah. So ultimately, you saw in the video, we're out to feed the world, and we think that we really need to, in the face of climate change, figuring out how to feed 10 billion people. So I'm going to start with the long term. Figuring out how to feed 10 billion people when land and water are becoming more and more scarce is super important. The thing I didn't talk about yet with our fungi is it uses 99% less land, 99% less water, and emits only 6% of the greenhouse gas emissions of traditional agriculture. So when you put those things together with something that is delicious and better for you and better for the planet, what we're really trying to do is switch people from saying, why would I eat this, to why wouldn't I eat this? I'm not really trading anything. That's the behavioral mind shift we're trying to make. In the short term, our yogurts, please go try them. They're really, really good. And I have coupons if anybody wants them. We really think that's going to help open up, because I don't think people go, wait, you can make yogurt out of fungi, and how would that taste? And so I think when people try the product, it's pretty, game changing.
So everyone try the product when we leave here from Austin.
Yeah, there you go. So we are very focused on our yogurt launch, which I just said, launched a few weeks ago in Whole Foods, and we really want to get some traction with that because I think it's going to help us really, and I think you can see some of the advertising we're doing, some out of home, and we're trying to break through and get some attention. And then really our main focus for our marketing is around sampling because it's been by far the most effective way for us to convert people. So last year I think we did close to 1 million samples of our products. We're probably going to beat that this year. We are going to expand. We have an exclusive relationship with Whole Foods for the yogurt. They were so excited that we're only selling at Whole Foods for a little bit, and then we'll expand into other retailers. And that's the game plan. We have a number of other categories coming on our innovation pipeline. that I can't tell you yet, but there are going to be some fun new categories that we're going to add in the coming years.
That's really exciting. Do you have a favorite?
Okay, my favorite, which is not on the market yet, but hopefully will be someday, is our chocolate mousse is to die for. I mean, that's what convinced me to join the company, literally, when I tried the chocolate mousse. I'm a chocolate fan. So, we have some really fun products coming, but we need to sort of establish our brand and then, add on. People are like, why don't you start with the chocolate mousse? I'm like, because 4 people are going to buy it, and that won't be enough. So we're trying to start with bigger categories.
That's amazing. So let's end it. I'm going to go circle back to women in leadership. So I heard this from a panel this morning, and I love the question. What's your superpower?
Oh, that's a good one. I think my superpower is around people. I feel like I have a lot of insight around why people behave the way that they do, and that helps me be a good leader. I also think it also helps me find great talent. And I mean, in every success I've had in my entire career has been because of the amazing team that I have working with me. I mean, if you go to the Registrant Lounge, you'll see they are the best, most hardworking, dedicated team. And I think finding those people who have the passion and who have the ability to kind of see what the bigger picture is and be strategic, and yet have no problem rolling up their sleeves. I mean, I flip breakfast patties for hours on end at the Berkeley Food Fest, and I will do it every time. I'm with my team usually when I'm doing this. So I think finding people that are excited to do this work with me and identifying great talent is probably my superpower.
I love this. I love that. So we have a few minutes for questions. I'm coming.
Hi there, it's me again.
It's you again.
Yeah. So there's
You're following me around.
I really, you told me to be fair. I accepted the invitation. There's an old quote from Don Hewitt, who created 60 Minutes, that the arc was the event, but Noah was the story, which is to say that people are who people connect with, to go back to your last point, right? I find it really interesting here because the hero is a microbe. It's a fungi, right? And the product. So as you think about getting bigger, expanding, growing, who are the faces that will be the faces of Nature's Fynd? I mean, you mentioned the chefs that you're working with, which are obviously very relatable to people, mass. Are your scientists, part of the mix? Who do you look to be the relatable faces of the brand?
Yeah, I think, honestly, the faces of our brand are going to, and if you maybe flip, there's a couple more slides in there that might show one of the faces of the brand. Maybe go back. Oh, there you go. So we are trying to humanize the brand as well. I mean, there's the product piece, but there's also the human piece. In terms of, who is the face of the brand, it's going to be along multiple legs, I think. I mean, the chefs are a big part of who's going to help, I think, set that culinary standard. We are also starting to work with nutritionists and dietitians around the health of the product. And obviously, sustainability is a third pillar, right? So all 3 of those for us are really important. We're still continuing to do work with Yellowstone and preserving that ecosystem. So we've got different ways and different audiences that we're talking to, depending on the message. But I think ultimately, the hero for any brand needs to be the consumer, right? Like, I mean, it's not about the brand. The brand is there as a resource. So as you are on your journey to either eat in a more sustainable way, to do what you can. I mean, the thing that people forget, and this is what we talk about all the time, is every single one of us in this room has 3 to 5 opportunities every day to have an impact on climate change and the food system, right? You don't have to do it. You don't have to become vegan. You don't have to we don't have to go to. You can do whatever you can, like whether it's Meatless Monday, Veganuary, breakfast every 3rd Saturday. I don't care. Like, every bit helps, and I think just giving people permission and meeting them where they are, to me, the consumer has to be the hero here. And so for me, the brand is about offering another choice. And you may not love every product we make. You might decide you love, and I talk to people all the time. I love the cream cheese. I don't know about the breakfast patty, or I love the breakfast patty, but I don't like the yogurt. Great. We're going to keep giving you more choices, and then you're going to decide. And I really believe, back to that point of going from why would I do this to why wouldn't you do this, is really the journey that we're on. So to me, the consumer is the face of our brand. I don't know if that's an answer, but that's mine.
Any other questions?
Hi, I'm fangirling here.
Thank
Suzanne
you.
LaForgia. I work at Volta Media. We have screens on electric vehicle charging stations in front of places like Whole Foods.
We're doing that too. Yeah.
Yes, awesome. Thank you. So it is interesting that you're putting up a lot of images of out of home. So it's
Yep.
obviously part of your strategy.
Yep.
Is that going to continue? And coming from a legacy marketer like P&G, who is more traditional mass,
Yep.
is because it's a niche product that you went a little more like out of home versus television.
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and we are just showing you the out of home. So, so my marketing spend is so different from any brand I've ever worked on. So it was a bit of a mind shift to say, okay, actually, and it was kind of fortuitous that I spent a lot of time in shopper marketing as well, because I knew the power of, how do you message from, all the way from brand all the way to conversion, right? Like, so throughout the funnel. So the bulk of our spending is actually in sampling and demos. So we come to events like South by Southwest and we do a ton of sampling. We do a ton of in-store demos, because if we can get the consumer to try it standing in the yogurt aisle, it's the most convincing. I mean, our returns are phenomenal on that. So as a revenue person, I also have to recognize that that's important. We use out of home strategically, and it's really about building brand awareness. So we do it in cities where there's a high concentration of Whole Foods. Those are those are the areas that we target, because out of home is expensive. So we don't do it a lot. We choose cities. We choose certain. We did it when we launched initially just to test it out. So we've done that, and then we do a lot of we do digital. So we're not doing any big mass. We're not there. I mean, no Super Bowl ad from us for a while. And not when I know that every $10 I can put into sampling is going to give a much greater return. But out of home, I think, is helping build our brand.
Cool. And then just very quick,
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the choice of Andrew Zimmern was because he famously does not like mushrooms. Of all the crazy things that he eats, he does not like the texture of mushrooms.
So it's a funny story with him. So Chef Eric Repair, who is our culinary advisor, hosts an event called the Cayman Cookout, which is a very fancy schmancy thing in the Cayman Islands that I've been fortunate enough to go to twice now, probably the last 2 times. But he invited us to go there, and we actually sampled. And Andrew Zimmern came over, tried our cream cheese, and he literally, I can't show you the video, but he recorded a 2-minute video on my phone talking about how this cream cheese was going to save the world. And I was like, okay, we need to talk. So, I mean, I don't even know that he didn't even register the mushroom. And then, we did this great, you can see it on our website. He did a little content for us. Literally, we put him on the streets of New York, handing out bagels and cream cheese. And who better to do that? And random people, and we filmed them, and it was hysterical. But yeah, he just has become, a good friend, an awesome chef. And he did, this year, he did a whole demo using our cream cheese to make sauce for all of his dishes. And it's pretty, it's the product, I shouldn't say this, luckily my boss is not here, but the product does sell itself to some extent, so I just have to make sure it shows up in the right places with the right people.
Well, I'll be waiting for my coupon after this session.
Yes, I've got
Thank
a whole
you.
bag of stuff. So
Thank you for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you for having me. Guys, thank you. What a great audience. Awesome. Thank you.